All right, well, welcome everybody to this week's tutorial. You should have two files downloaded. One is of a turtle, and one is of two fox sketches. This week, we will be embarking on the drawing tool, or the pen tool in Illustrator. And this tool is a critical tool to know, especially if you're creating any kind of illustrative imagery in Illustrator. And it is a difficult tool, but I am going to walk you through it and try to make it as painless as possible. So go ahead and launch Illustrator, and I have these two images ready to go on your desktop to drag into Illustrator. When you get your dialog box popped up here, we are going to go ahead and just work with a similar size that we've been working with all term. And we are going to go with a new file here. And let's go ahead and do the 16 by 16 inch artboard. We're going to need two artboards today. And you can leave everything else at default. So go ahead and create those. So the pen tool is great because it is going to allow you to basically draw any type of imagery that you would ever need in Illustrator. Just one moment, I'm just going to make my... All right, so I just wanted to make my pointer a little bit bigger, and I updated my operating system. So now I have the option of making it red. Oh, it's only red if I'm not on my Illustrator canvas. Oh well, what are you gonna do? But at least it's large there for you to see it. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we are gonna bring these two files in to Illustrator. So go ahead and drag and drop both of these images. They're fairly small, so you shouldn't get too much riffraff. Should just go ahead and make that size. Okay, so here are our imagery for tracing in this particular tutorial. The foxes, I'm gonna go ahead and make a little larger just to cover the artboard. A little bit more. There we go. You're actually going to just choose one of these to trace. We're not going to do both, but you can do both if you want to keep practicing with the pen tool, if you get really, really excited. All right. So these images, I'm going to make them a little bit lower in opacity because we really want them to be sort of grayed out so that we can trace them throughout the tutorial. But we don't want their opacity to be so high because it can kind of get in the way of what we're looking at. So what I'm going to have you do is click on, both of them, not at the same time, but you can go to Appearance here. So I'm going to go ahead and select the foxes. And under Opacity in the Appearance panel, I'm going to go ahead and turn that down to about 40%, somewhere in there. So that's looking good. I'm going to come in and select my turtle, and I'm going to do the same thing. Go down to about 40%. You can have it wherever you would like, whatever your comfort level is with tracing. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the layers panel. Now, one thing is I don't wanna be tracing these objects and then having, as I hover over these, having the image itself that I'm tracing, I don't want it to be allowed to be selected because it's going to drive me crazy. So what we're going to do is for layer 1, we're going to toggle that up and we're just going to lock the layer. And then that way, these will not select or move around or anything. There is a way to technically make something a tracing layer in Illustrator as well, but I don't really use it. You can, if you come across it and you want to use it in the future, go ahead. All right, so let's go ahead and start by zooming in on these foxes. So these are both a couple of fox logo drawings, And I'm going to show you how to turn these into a nice vector graphic. Now, when you trace the fox, yours, especially if you're new to Illustrator, is not probably going to be traced as well as mine, but that's perfectly okay. The point is that you are able to use the pen tool to a point where you can trace something and make some really basic, simple imagery, okay? All right, so you can choose which of the two you want to do. I'm going to do this one. And the thing with the pen tool is there's a couple of keys that you're constantly going to be hitting on your keyboard. And there's a lot of clicking involved. At first, it seems a little bit tedious and maybe counterintuitive to have to click so much, but you do get used to it and it goes by pretty quickly. And you'll know what I mean here in just a moment when we get started. So let's go ahead and select the pen tool. So over on your toolbar, it is, depending on whether you have this doubled up or single, it's going to be the third one down, pen tool. Now, if you hold the pen tool down, you're going to see that you have add anchor point, delete anchor point, and the anchor point tool, which I think we've actually used. But the pen tool is what you're going to want to have selected. Now, I have a fill and a stroke selected. I have white as the fill. I'm going to go ahead and if you look at this panel, when you select either the fill or the stroke, you're going to see one's going to be on top. So for the fill, I'm going to actually come over here and choose nothing. And then for the stroke, I want to choose something bright that's easy to see. So I'm going to choose red for the stroke. There we go. So before we start off with the fox, let's just start. You can kind of just start anywhere where you don't really see anything. And let's just understand what's going on with this pen tool. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is just click down and click back up, and what you're going to see is this little line shadow following the pen tool, right? And that's going to show you where your line is going to be going, okay? So then just pick any point and go ahead and click down again and let the mouse back up. All right, so we have a straight line here. Now, what I want you to do is hold your shift key down and move your mouse or trackpad around, and you're going to see that you get a nice clean line at well, I can't remember exactly which degree, at 45-degree angles, but I think we have one in between there too. Oh no, it is 45-degree angles. So I can click down, and if I hold my shift key down, it's going to give me a nice straight line, which can be really useful. Okay, so then what we're going to do is you're going to click down this time, but before you do that, you're going to click down and you're going to drag. So let's click down and let's drag. And you're going to see that this is how you get a curved line. Now, when you use curved lines, the pen tool defaults and thinks, oh, this person must want to do another curve again. And sometimes this is helpful depending on what you're tracing, but sometimes it's not helpful. Let's say in our situation, this is not helpful, this predetermined curve. What you're going to do is go back to that anchor point, and you're going to see the bevel shape tool pop up. You're going to click onto that, and then you're going to see you get the option of a nice straight line again. Now, this will make more sense once we start tracing the fox. All right, so I'm just going to click anywhere, and then I'm going to go ahead and make another round shape. And I'm going to click again to make it straight again. Now, eventually you should hover back to that very first anchor point that you dropped. When you do, you're going to see a closed circle pop up next to your pen tool. This is indicating that you are closing the path that you started creating a full shape, right? Because there's two different types of paths in Illustrator. There's closed, which makes a shape, which has a fill, and then there's open, which really only has a stroke to it. And we're going to work with both of those in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and click down and complete our shape. Voila, there it is. Now you can also go back and edit this at any time, just like any other shape that you've made previous to this tutorial. So I can go in here and I can click and edit the corners if I like, or do whatever it is that I want to do. Now, sometimes when we start with the pen tool, students ask, well, why can't you just draw with many, many anchor points? So sometimes I get students that start off like this, and this is perfectly fine. They drop an anchor point and drop it and drop 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 like this. And they sort of draw along this way. This makes your artwork hard to edit, hard to tweak. It also gives way too many, it's just too many anchor points, and it's not great shape paths to work with generally. So this is something that you want to avoid when you're drawing in Illustrator. The least amount of anchor points is best, okay? All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and start drawing this fox. Now this fox logo sketch, I'm actually going to have several different shapes here. I'm going to have one big shape here, one shape here, one, two, three, four. So 4 shapes total. So this is a great logo is always going to use negative space as a way to define, something about that basic illustration. So this is a great example of that. The sketch is using negative space to make and define elements of the logo where there is positive space, which is super cool. All right, and that's why design is so awesome, because you can do a lot of things like defining, making definition in imagery without defining anything, if that makes any sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the head. I think that'll be the easiest, whichever fox you choose, it doesn't matter. And let's go ahead and drop an anchor point. So you're looking at a shape like this. You're gonna wanna start on a corner. So I'm gonna say, let's go ahead and just start with the ear. So I'm gonna drop an anchor point. I am gonna come to the top of the ear and I'm gonna drop and drag. So drop and drag, and I'm going to have my curve follow along with the shape as much as possible, right? I can go back and tweak it later if I want to. So I have the predetermined curve because I used a curve in my last anchor point. And I'm seeing here that this is not helpful to me. I'm not going to be able to make that definition in the ear that I want to. So we're going to go back to the anchor point and click. And we've got our straight line again, okay? I'm going to click down in the next corner. And I'm going to go ahead and finish out that ear shape. Perfect. So there's an ear. And like I said, we're going to keep it simple on this one. Nothing too complicated, okay? So I've got my predetermined curve, and this is what I was talking about with clicking all the time. You're going to go back and click. Some students have expressed that they really hate this in the past, and I get it, but that is just how the drawing tool works in Illustrator. So with this, I went about halfway down the nose because I'm not going to be able to, from this anchor point all the way to this corner, make this curve shape. So I need to have I need to have a shape in the, or I'm sorry, an anchor point in the middle to come in and do the tip of the nose, okay? So I'm going to come in and curve in a bit here. All right, perfect. And this is kind of a logo type of shape, right? So I don't really want to have a lot of definition or contour on the fox. This is a smooth, slick type of logo sort of illustration. So I'm going to kind of look at this and survey, and I think that if I drop an anchor point here and drag, I'm going to sort of get that curve I'm looking for at the end of the fox's snout. Okay, drop, predetermined curve, not doing me any good. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it looks like it dropped another anchor by accident. This happens a lot, where you try to go back and click and you accidentally just drop another anchor point by mistake. So I'm just going to Command Z it. Undo, right? I'm also noticing that my layer path sort of viewer is the same color as the stroke that I chose. So I believe I can change that. Let's see. Where can I change that? Is it here? Nope. Oh, where is it? There's a way that you can change this color. Is that it? Nope. I'm blanking. It's something really silly and easy, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go to my swatches and I'm just going to change the stroke to be, let's just change it to dark blue maybe. Maybe that will be easier to see. And I'm noticing that it just changed. I didn't have my fox selected. So let's try that again. There we go. So yeah, now you can see this a little bit better. Anyways, all right. So I have my pen tool selected, and you know what? This is actually good. I've noticed something. Sometimes this happens. I'm drawing along with my path, and I'm at this last anchor, and I'm not drawing on this particular path anymore. So what do? Well, you can just pick right back up again by clicking on the last anchor point that you were working with, and you can see the pen tool starts back up again. You can also stop the pen tool, like if you want this to go away and you're done drawing a line, which we'll get to later on, by hitting the P key. You can see that disappears. The letter P will break the path, okay? You can keep the path going again just by clicking on the an open anchor point that you have. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of curve around this. So what I want you to do is I want you to practice to the best of your ability by tracing one of these foxes. And it's okay if your lines are wobbly and don't look very good. That's certainly okay. If you're already familiar with the pen tool and you have done a lot of tracing in the past, then this should be fairly easy for you. All right, so now we're at the end of the fox's head. So here's my circle showing, oh, this is gonna be a closed path when you're done. So I'm gonna go ahead and stretch that out. I want this curve to look as natural as possible. You can see I've got a little bit of a bend right here, and I'll go over how to fix that in just a second. So anyway, there's my first shape. I've traced a sketch of a logo. You can always come in, if you have your direct selection tool, right? You can always come in and adjust these handles. If I click on this anchor, because I've got this bump that needs to be smoothed out, I can pull that in. It's gonna break it into more, it's gonna add another anchor to it, but that's okay. Look at how nice and smooth that is now. So just know that when you're drawing with any of these that get a little bit rough, you can go in, you can adjust the handles however you need to, and then you have your other adjustments that you like here, it's a little bit, it's not as smooth as I would like. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull my curve handle out and smooth it out a little bit. All right. Okay. So what I want you to do is, I'm gonna go ahead and finish tracing this fox, but I'm gonna speed it up in the video. And I want you to I want you to complete tracing, you know, either one of these sketches. And yeah, I'll come back to you when I'm finished with that. Okay? All right, here we go. Good luck. Okay, so I have the entire fox drawn out here. I'm gonna go ahead and choose my direct selection tool. I'm gonna make some edits, some areas that I would like to have smoothed out and tweaked. So I also have a few anchor points I'd like to move down so that it's all, you can see my smart guides are popping in there, showing me where everything's gonna be level. Sorry, I've got my dog clinking around in the background. So funny because usually she just lays around and does absolutely nothing, but when I'm recording tutorials, she likes to walk in and out of the room, in and out of the room. Okay. Oh, here's one other part of the tail that's looking a little bit jagged, so we're gonna go ahead and smooth that out. Okay. And voila, a fox. Now, I would like to add a gradient, and I would like us to go over working with gradients a little bit. You do have some basic gradients that you're always going to find in your swatch panel right here. But let's go ahead and let's find some more. So if we go to the swatch libraries menu right here, and you go a little less than halfway down, you're going to see a whole bunch of gradients pop up. So let's see what we can do. Let's just do brights and see what pops up there. So you can see lots of bright swatches here. And I don't know, I think I can actually, there we go, make that a little bit bigger. You always have panel options over here on how big things are and different ways to see them. So I'll obviously make them large for tutorials. So I'm gonna decide to go ahead and use orange because foxes are orange usually. So I've got 2 tones of orange here. And when I select that, you're gonna see that that gradient actually pops up here in my swatch panel. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my regular selection tool and I'm gonna shift select the parts of the fox that I want to be orange. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that gradient. And I just realized that I had my stroke selected and not my fill. But instead of going over to the fill and choosing the gradient again, what I can do is just swap these by toggling them. So you see this little arrow, this little double arrow right here that points to both boxes. If you click on that, it will just toggle those for you. And voila. And then the fox's eye, I am going to toggle to blue, and then I'm going to choose, whoops, black for the fill on that. And you can see I've got a bit of a toggle mess over here, toggling back and forth. So I'm gonna have black as the fill, and then I'm gonna click on the blue stroke here, and to just have no stroke at all, I'm gonna select this to just black that out. Or blank it out, I suppose would be a better way to put it. Okay, so there is my Fox logo. Okay, well, anyways, that's how you choose a gradient from the library and apply it to the artwork that you just created. We will get more into manipulating gradients as we move forward, but there you go. You should have a little fox there. And if you want to make it bigger, you of course can marquee select all the elements of the fox if you want to make it a little bit bigger on the artboard there, like so. And we will come back. We will come back to this. In the next video, we're going to move on to the turtle. All right. Thanks, everyone. Make sure you save your project. Go to File, Save as, you know, illustration, tutorial, whatever you want. And then, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Bye.